Special Constabulary and the Salvation Army, who've given comfort and still give comfort at times of emergency, in war and in peacetime incidents. Famous for the cup of tea, designed to comfort and reassure.
And finally, we can at last see the end of the columns. We've been watching the march past from right in the middle of it. Patrick Hennessy, we've heard the banter, we've heard the chat, we've heard the stories that they've been sharing, but the sense of pride is enormous here, isn't it?
It really comes across, and you've only got to look at some of these sort of glittering chests of people to see there's hundreds of men decorated for gallantry, service all over the world. I think there's almost a tragic naivety about the original idea of the cenotaph, the war to end all wars, and the idea that hopefully that would never happen again. Obviously history's shown that to be wrong, but when you see a gathering like this and the pride that people have in their regiments, the names change and the different ties change, but actually there's a continuity and an appreciation of history. You know, I've just seen people that I was at Sandhurst with, and we've also met people who were at Sandhurst with my grandfather, and I think that's something to be aware of.
I suppose as well, it's something that most of us actually can't understand, people who haven't served. There must be something about coming together like people are today.
I think you certainly get a sense of that, of why it is that the bonds are so strong between people who have fought together and who've been through some of the things that some of these gentlemen here have been through together. But I think the great thing about a day like Remembrance Day is it is the chance for the wider public who perhaps haven't been through that experience to see that, to get a bit of a flavour for it, and to demonstrate their appreciation for it. And I know that part of the pride that all these guys are feeling is the applause and the turnout and the general support they're getting from the public.
Patrick Hennessy, thank you very much.
The Commonwealth War Graves Commission. They were very engaged this year when the remains of bodies that had been undisturbed for 90 years at the Battle of Fromelles were discovered. Records suggest Australian dead, nearly 2,000, and British 500, and they will be buried along with the many other Commonwealth and British soldiers. And they're followed by the ships again, suddenly, Ardent and the Acasta Association, the old Cryptians. The Royal British Legion, these are non-ex-service members. People who work with the Legion. The Union Jack Club follows them. Interestingly, the Shot at Dawn Pardons campaign is included here. They were those given a pardon when shot for desertion. Parliament abolished the death penalty, and only recently were their request to be included here at the cenotaph included. And so we're coming to the end of this last column, coming down towards the cenotaph. 9,000 people in all here today, and many, many more watching this ceremony in Whitehall or taking part in their own Remembrance Day events around the country, many of them with vivid memories of those that they've lost. Nigel Moffat remembers his son, Lance Corporal Moffat, also called Nigel, who served in the Light Dragoons. He was killed in May this year on an operation conducted by the Brigade Reconnaissance Force in Afghanistan.
Nigel was a gem of a son, and the greatest accolade I could give to Nigel was that Nigel was his mother's son. He was a joy to her, and he was a joy to me as a father, and Nigel was greatly loved by his brothers and sisters. Nigel was a soldier. He found in the army a home away from home, and he became, along with his friends, a part of a great family. The great sorrow for me is that Nigel didn't have the full life in the army that he loved, because he was taken because of the job that the army did. They must of necessity be in harm's way.
At Nigel Moffat's funeral, his father read a poem that he'd written, in which he sees his son joining the end of the long line of all those killed in war.
There is in the eternal realms a great line of men who march along a long winding road. Their task is to collect the dead of ages taken from the ranks of the fallen. After midnight on the 30th of May 2009, the great line halts and a sergeant major's voice rings out, not as on the parade ground, but in the solemn silence increased. The short command is given, get fell in to the rear of the column. Two soldiers take their place, adjust their equipment, and calm their troubled expressions. These fall into shoulder arms, and the great line of men, the dead of ages, taken from the ranks of the fallen, moves off at a slow march, wending its way along the long winding road. Almost out of sight, the line visibly halts, and a sergeant major's voice rings out, get fell in to the rear of the column. And we who mortals be, strain to hear the sound of their marching feet.
Sad and poignant words to end this Remembrance Sunday. The young often think of themselves as immortal. War teaches that it's not so. From this commemoration at the Cenotaph from Whitehall, good afternoon.